So we have still a couple of students joining us, and you are most welcome. Guys, thank you very much for logging in today. Careers Café graduating, what next? We have 4 absolutely fantastic grads with us this morning who are just going to share their journey and any advice that may fall out of that. So they were sitting where you were a year or 2 ago. So I'll just explain who we have. So we have 4 grads here. First of all, Cara McErlane will be speaking, and Cara graduated just last year in psychology. And then we will have Emma. Emma is beaming in from a hotel in Dublin. She works in the hospitality industry and graduated from hospitality in Belfast in 2020, the year when there was no hospitality. And then we have Eamai, most likely, and Eamai graduated in 2020 from law, when, of course, we were in our first lockdown. It was all very frightening. And then Delvna Cunning has joined us here. She's just had a move recently. And Delvna graduated photography and videography in 2020 when there were no arts, when everything was closed. So we do have 4 exceptionally strong candidates here. I was going to say strong women, but I don't want to be gender biased, but we have ended up with 4 females. And really what I want to do is allow our grads to share their stories and provide any advice. Students can ask questions at any time they want. Either raise your hand using the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen, or pop your question into the chat box. We won't stand on ceremony. This won't be very formal because we want people to get absolutely anything out of today that they feel that they wanted to. So first things first, I'm going to hand over to Cara. So as I say, Cara graduated psychology in Coleraine just last year, and she's a really interesting story to share. Are you all right there, Cara? Are you okay to unmute yourself and pop your camera on?
Yes, can you hear me okay? Yeah. Go ahead. Perfect. Well, Kathy, thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me here. I love doing wee speeches like this, so this is really good. So yeah, as you know, my name is Cara McErlane. I did a undergrad in psychology at Coleraine. Absolutely loved it. Very passionate about psychology and mental health, I suppose due to like professional and personal experience in the area. And then I went on to do a master's in applied psychology as well, which was probably the best thing I've ever done, just in terms of like growth throughout that year and things. Very hard year, but I feel like the hard years sort of make you grow, don't they? So yeah, so it's very, very challenging, but I absolutely love the masters, the course, everything. Just Ulster for me, I think I'll always like have a special place for it, honestly, just the lectures and things. But I suppose I could sit here for 5 minutes and tell you all about my experience, but I'm not really going to do that. I'm going to talk more so about maybe a wee bit of like in terms of how maybe lost we can often feel whenever we graduate, how scary it can be, how scared I was, not maybe about 2 months ago and now where I am and where I am now. So just I suppose to maybe provide you with a wee bit of hope in that, because I know after we graduate we do feel a wee bit scared, and there's that what now, and there's that sort of pressure. I'm not saying that everybody here is in their 20s, but there is that sort of pressure that to have your life together per se. Whenever I do question what having your life together really means, but anyway, yeah. So I suppose we'll get into it, and I'll not speak too much because it's a bit of a long story, so I'll try to condense it as much as I can. So at the moment, I'm working as an assistant psychologist for the NHS, and what that means is working with individuals experiencing depression and anxiety, low mood, things like that. So I carry out assessments and treatment as well. But before that, I was working in a very intense job, September up until April. It was called a psychological wellbeing practitioner, sort of the same line, just working within mental health, but I'll not get into that too much. But I suppose during the time between January and April, I began to sort of suffer quite badly myself in terms of my own mental health. And I think to this day, probably the hardest thing I've probably ever done is wake up every morning and help others with their mental health while I was sort of suffering myself. So I suppose come April, I was just severely burnt out in my job. Wasn't prioritising my mental health I was, as the saying goes, pouring very much from an empty cup. And so I had to take a wee break from work. I actually walked into my therapist's office. I'm very open about saying, normalizing therapy and all that. I walked into my therapist's office and basically just said, I don't feel like I'm the right person to be helping people right now. I really need to prioritize myself before I can help others. While that was the scariest thing I've ever done, because then I wasn't working for, ended up being about 2 months. Whilst that was the scariest 2 months ever, I was so lost. I genuinely didn't know what the next step was, whether I was going to, it felt like at that stage I was going to be off work for the rest of my life. I didn't see any hope in getting better. But I suppose, long story short, I did a wee talk at my graduation actually, and one of my lecturers approached me and offered this assistant psychologist post, and I just, ever since then, I didn't ever think that would happen. I suppose it really does all just show that everything happens for a reason. If I didn't do that talk at the graduation, the lecturer wouldn't have approached me and I wouldn't be where I am today. And if I didn't go into my therapist's office and basically admit that I wasn't well enough to help others, I wouldn't be where I am today either. So I suppose what I want to say is to the 6 or 7 people on here, or even the moderators as well, no matter how lost you feel, every single thing in your life happens for a reason. I do truly believe in that, and as cliche as it sounds, everything works out for the best. It always does. And trust the process as well. I think always trust your gut as well, because my gut was telling me and screaming at me for months that I was burnt out and to take a rest and explore different avenues within psychology as well. So yeah, I suppose just trust your gut and prioritize your mental health as well. So I suppose the reason I went down that route in today's talk is because I do know that how scary it can be whenever you do graduate and how lost you can be. But I know I felt lost myself very much so, and now I'm excited for the future, and I'm almost thankful that darkness happened. Thanks, Donna. I feel like there was another really valuable point there, but hopefully it'll maybe come to me. But yeah, you can ask me questions. So I'm very open about my story as well. And sorry, just a quick note. So I talk more about my story and my mental health as well over on social media. I've got like a wee Instagram page called A Little Page of Positivity. Little is spelled Lil, where I sort of normalize mental health and burnout and things like that. So if you want more sort of content like this, then you can go and follow me over there. So yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you for being so open, Cara, because obviously, the more open people are about their mental health, and I do think that people are, but only in recent years, then, it helps people to share their own stories as well. And I know that people will have questions for you, and you'll probably want to tease more points out as we go along, but that's absolutely fantastic. So I'll move on to Emma Davis, if that's okay, if there are no questions straight away for Cara. Because people are just wowed at the minute. They've got to go and digest it. We have Emma Davis. So Emma's joining us. Emma's joining us from a hotel in Dublin. I will not say why, because we already had that discussion. Now she works in the hospitality industry. But obviously, graduating in 2020 with a degree in hospitality, Emma, must have been extremely difficult. If you just wanted to maybe talk us through your own story.
Yeah, so as you said, graduating into an industry that didn't literally exist was a bit of a nightmare. I remember coming out and just thinking, what have I spent the last 4 years of my life doing? Just a bit of a waste, just panic. As Cara had said, you just come out feeling lost. I sort of took a couple of months just to feel sorry for myself, and HR was something that I had really taken an interest in my final year of uni. I sort of knew the basic sort of course we had to do to get into it, so I applied for that in September and went and did that at Belfast Met. In between sort of working on and off in the job I'd had for the last year and a half in Ibis, I was able to get that or work through that. After it had closed for the second time because of a lockdown, I started to think to myself, I need to start thinking seriously, try and get something a bit more steady at this moment until everything sort of passes. So reluctantly, I went and got a job in Lidl's. It was the shortest job I've ever had. Not putting that job down or anything, but it wasn't me. It wasn't what I wanted to do. And I only lasted a month there. It was the shortest job I'd ever had. But I ended up getting a job as HR in Randox. It was one of the main COVID testing businesses at this time, so it was just mental. Whenever I got in, we had a 2,000 person backlog we had to work through, getting references, all that sort of stuff, and it was quite intense. There's some days we were actually down in the labs helping out, processing the tests and stuff, so it was a lot, and then especially trying to adapt to an office environment from whenever I'd worked in hospitality all my life. It was very different. So whenever the lockdown started to ease again, I went back to my comfort zone. Thinking back now, I shouldn't have done it, but I went back to Ibis and took that step back. Spent, I think it was 2 months there, and then I was like, right, I need to start moving on. I can't keep moving backwards. So I saw there was an opening in Maldron, Belfast City, as an HR assistant, and we had taken a visit to the Maldron in my final year, and I actually remember turning around to my friend and saying, I want to work here someday. After doing 2 interviews, I got the job, and it's where I am now. I'm absolutely loving it. Every day, like I have a lot of responsibility. My manager trusts me a lot. She's put me onto an HR development program at the end of the year, which Delata, they're very, very good for training if that's the sort of thing you want to go into. So it trains you up from anything from admin right up to manager. So it would be their development program within the company. So that's sort of where I'm at now. I am looking at doing my HR Masters sort of in the next few years. But I'm wanting to get the experience now. But yeah, I rely a lot on LinkedIn. We do a lot of our posts, anything that we're getting up to, we post on there. We get to interact a lot with the other company or with the other hotels in our company and see what they're all getting up to. And yeah, just a bit of advice from me would be just, I know it's easier said than done, but just don't be panicking. What might be right for someone else may not be right for you, and just, you know, you're young, you have plenty of time to get to where you want to be, so don't be hard on yourself if you don't come out of uni and get there exactly. It took me a year and a half to sort of get down the line I wanted to go to, but I think I'm on the right path now, so yeah, that's sort of my journey.
And the qualification that you put yourself through, was that while you were working in Randox?
So it was basically from September 2020 right through until May 21. So yeah, I was in Randox whenever I was doing it. So it was like 1 day a week. So yeah.
And that was just you proactively going out there and finding what qualification would help you in your role as a stepping stone as opposed to the end point.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yeah. Because I had no experience in it, I wanted to go and get at least, you know, the basic qualification to get into it, and then I can move up and do the level 5 and the level 7. But yeah, as you said, it was a stepping stone to get there.
So you looked at the sectors that were hiring, and of
Yep.
course, you know, all of the supermarkets and food distribution was massive, and Randox, of course, massive success story. They were doing all the testing, not just for this country, but other parts of the country as well, and that's
Yeah.
where you were able to get an in. So how did you, if you don't mind me asking, how did you manage not to get really down, you know, about everything?
I think I just sort of kept thinking, you know, at some point everything is going to open up again. Just sort of taking the time to get the needed experience to eventually get to where I wanted to go to. Just having that in the back of my head, this isn't, this isn't my end point. Like I am eventually going to go back into hospitality and doing what I want to do. Yeah, I think just not overthinking it too much, just thinking, just get a job right now to get you past until, it is the right time, and that sort of thing.
I admire that you were able to take that longer term view, because I
Yeah.
think that is a really difficult thing to do when you're right in the middle of it. And let's be honest, 2020 was terrifying.
Yeah.
It was very, very frightening for everybody. But well, what a year to be graduating. I mean, I don't think you could have graduated in the worst year.
No, like it felt like I didn't get a closure. It was only whenever we graduated in April there, like got our proper ceremony, I felt like I had proper closure to uni, because it was just, you submitted your research paper and that was it, done. Like it was a weird ending. It was you could have never imagined it was going to end like that.
And then of course a lot of people go and travel, and that wasn't an option either.
Yeah, because that was another thing that I had been thinking of doing whenever I'd finished, was doing the cliche thing of going to Australia, and then that all went in the bin. But
Yeah. Well, I really admire you, Emma, and you seem happy. You seem content with where you are at the moment. You still have that longer term view of what you want to do next, though.
yeah, and that development program that is in place, it's making me want to stay with the company, because I know there is that plan in place for me to eventually move up. The hotel group is all over UK and Ireland, so I know that there's the opportunities for the future to eventually get into the management. So
That's fantastic, Emma. Thank you. Thank you so much.
no
There's no
problem.
questions coming through at the moment, but there are positive comments. Hopefully you're able to see that at the bottom. So if it's okay, a question. Yeah, opportunities outside Ireland with the Delvna group.
Yeah, so there's Ireland, Northern Ireland, UK, and we've just opened a hotel in Germany, in Dusseldorf. I know there are more hotels in the pipeline for Europe. It's just a matter of them opening over the next few years, but the Delvna Hotel Group is growing. If there was any interest, not in a wee pitch here, but to go on to the Delvna careers, we're constantly hiring for different positions, and it is a really good company for moving up. Why did I choose HR and hospitality? I think because the hospitality industry has sort of been, as cliche again as it is, it's been like me, like it's where I'm comfortable. HR, I think having the two of them together was something, it meant I could do what I wanted, but in the industry I wanted to do. I love the sort of the family feel. Yeah, I'm rambling here, but I think I'm getting a point to what I mean. Basically, just it felt right. That's what I wanted to do. What was the other one there? Would I consider going to Europe? I definitely would. Was it challenging to do 2 interviews? It was challenging to do 2 interviews to get the role initially. I'd only ever done one. The first one was virtual, and then the second one I actually got to meet my current manager and the general manager. Just made sure I read around sort of the basic HR role, and looked up interview questions that would be likely to come up, and just prepared myself. Is that everything?
Looks to be for the moment. Oh my goodness, there's another one coming through. See, people need to get worked up. I bet you there'll be more questions for Cara.
Yeah, I did a lot of research about the hotel. It was actually my course tutor whenever I was doing my CIPD course. I don't know how he knew, but he was like, make sure you read up about the actual company, because that was one of the questions. So I was able to tell them about their development programs, about the hotels they had, how many rooms were in the hotel, that sort of a thing. Advice for those looking for a career in hospitality. obviously the hospitality industry at the minute, it's quite tough. With Brexit and everything, we lost a lot of the European staff members that we would have had. I think get into a company that genuinely care about your development, that you're not there doing, you know, 70, 80 hours a week and on minimum wage. Get into somewhere that does have the likes of the development programs, graduate programs, that sort of a thing. It's a really great industry to work in. I know it doesn't have a very good rep at times, but I couldn't see myself working in any other industry. Is that everything?
For the moment, it looks to be, but I know that
Yeah.
obviously we'll circle back, and people are starting to get into the flow of things.
Yeah.
I'm going to, if that's okay, move on to Amy.
Yeah.
Amy, if you wanted to pop your camera back on, if we can see you.
Can you
There
see
we
me now?
go. Oh, we can see, we can hear you. Hi, Amy.
Hi.
So Amy graduated law. Was it law with criminology?
Yeah, law with criminology. Yeah.
Right. Law with criminology out of our Jordanstown campus in 2020. Again, you know, 2020, very, very scary year. So Amy, if you just kind of wanted to share how things were for you, maybe even potentially through final year or on graduation and beyond, or wherever you think it's best to start with.
Okay. So I think final year for me was a struggle in more than one way. Not only was I in final year of a law degree, I also was struggling with anxiety, which I've been diagnosed with anyway, which was worsened. And then we were also in the middle of COVID, so it was kind of a triple threat of terror. I had multiple things going on. And I really related to what Cara was saying about, you know, being in your 20s and there's kind of a pressure when you graduate to just fall straight into a job. And especially in law, I think everyone panics in their final year. They think, you know, you have to go straight into a training contract. If you don't have a training contract, you're never going to get one. And it's so competitive. So my final year really was a struggle. I think COVID definitely worsened it in that my anxiety got so bad to the point where I started avoiding going to lectures. I didn't want to get the train to travel because that made it worse again. And I ended up just having to go to Kathy and just saying, you know, I think I need a bit of help here because I'm not going to get through this final year by myself. So Kathy recommended to go to the counsellors in the university, and there was one specifically that helped me with anxiety and coping mechanisms for that. So that really helped me. I also had spoke to Kathy about how I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I finished. I didn't feel like I necessarily fit into any of the boxes that everyone else wanted to do. So I'm just looking at the messages, they're distracting me. So the Ipls exam was in December of my final year, and a lot of people were sitting that, and I kind of felt pressurized into sitting it as well because that's what everyone else was doing, and I felt like that's what I was expected to do. So I paid the money and I signed up for it, but just the stress of it, I just couldn't do it. So I then went back to Kathy again, and we had a number of chats about it, and she weighed up the pros and cons, and we just came to the conclusion that it would be best for me to just leave it and focus on my final year. I was already struggling, you know, with COVID, with my anxiety, and it being a law degree. So we just decided to just leave it and trust the process that things will fall into place and you'll get where you need to be. So I focused on myself then for the final year, you know, dealt with my anxiety, and then I ended up graduating with a first class honours, so I was very happy about that. And I graduated, I think it was June, and then by August I had fell into a remote job from home in Herbert Smith Freehills. It was a big commercial firm, and I worked there for a year. And then because things were starting to pick up from COVID, at that point I decided that I would maybe chance sit in the Ipls exam just to see what would happen. And because I do have anxiety, I was able to sit it in a smaller area with less people in the room, so that really helped me. So I sat the exam just thinking, you know, like, what's the worst that could happen? I'll sit it and see what happens. So then I ended up passing, and I had emailed around a lot of people, because I don't know if anyone knows, but trying to get a training contract is extremely competitive. There's just, everyone's looking for one in this country, so it just, you know, it's so hard to come by. I had emailed so many people and no one had gotten back to me. And when I did get through certain stages of the interviews, I just never got to the last stage. So I was kind of running out of hope at this point. And then my current master, she contacted me, I think it was on a Monday, and asked me to come for an interview on Friday. And I went for the interview on the Friday, and then by Monday I had the job. So I'm now a trainee solicitor in JPH Law in Portadown. And it's not where I thought I was going to be at all, but I couldn't be happier. It's definitely where I'm supposed to be, and I do feel like I do pretty well in the job. So what I would just say is, don't panic if you feel like you maybe don't fit in, or you're not really sure what area to go into. Just try different things, and you will get where you're supposed to be. So yeah, but if anyone needs any, you know, anxiety coping mechanisms or tips, feel free to reach out, because I've got plenty. So yeah, I think that's it.
Again, you know, it's fantastic. Thank you for being so open. I was so worried about Amy when she came to see me in final year that I actually physically almost frog marched her over to student wellbeing. And I never forgot that. I was so concerned. So, you know, getting the right help at the right time, and as Cara was saying, admitting as well, you know, that she was burnt out. It's a timing thing as well. It's knowing when to do that. And I'm just so happy to see you so successful. But you have to bear in mind, you know, this is a message coming across here, guys, where people are saying, you know, don't feel pressurized that you have to have everything worked out. You know, we're probably all a work in progress indefinitely. I don't have it all worked out. So Amy, there was a question for you there. So we have someone who is studying an LLM, and they maybe have telephone interviews for paralegal and legal jobs. Telephone interviews can be a bit, some people find them easier because they don't have to sit in front of a panel, but other people find them harder because, you know, there's only tone of voice and words. You can't do the whole thing with your person. Have you any quick tips in particular, Amy? Because it sounds like you went through a few of these yourself.
Yeah, I think in order to kind of get yourself across via telephone, they can't really see your personality that much. So try to just get that in, you know, even if you make them laugh or stick in a little joke. I know everybody says that lawyers don't like jokes, but we do. So try to maybe stick in, you know, something that will get your personality across, and also really research the firm. When I did my interview for Herbert Smith Freehills, I looked up the interviewers, and I had found out that one of them had, I think, did a research paper on a topic in criminology that I'd also covered. So when I brought that up in the interview, he was so shocked. He said he doesn't even remember like writing that paper, and how did I figure this out? And I think they were both really surprised that I went to the effort of finding that information out. So I think just going above and beyond in your preparation and showing that you're really interested in that firm, and it's not just, you know, you're not sending the same CV to 25 different places. I would say that.
And you're obviously coping amazingly well in a very highly pressurized work environment now. Again, as I say, we're all a work in progress, but there's a questions come through from someone who would also have some form of anxiety disorder, and they're saying, you know, that obviously is going to flare up, you know, in job hunting and potential rejection. And it sounds like you went through like the same as law is really competitive, that training contract that people are chasing after. Have you any tips of dealing, you know, with that pressure?
I think when you have as many rejections as I did, you kind of get to the point where you just think, you know, is this not for me? But you just have to pick yourself back up and understand that Northern Ireland is such a small place. You know, there's too many of us and there's not enough jobs. So if you don't get the job, it's not the end of the world. And I personally think that all of those jobs that didn't take me, I'm glad now, because I'm so happy where I am now. So don't feel like you have to apply for just random things that you're not interested in just for getting a job. Just try to really narrow it down and go for the ones that you really want, and don't fall into the pressure. Just relax, and they're not rejecting you personally. They see hundreds of applications, so the right job will come by you. Yeah, so that's just what I would say.
Thank you so much, Eamai. As I keep
welcome.
saying, we are so lucky. We are so lucky to have such amazing grads who are giving up their time to talk to you guys here. Thank you so much. What I'll do then is we'll move on to Delvna and then circle back if anyone has any questions for anybody else. So thank you. So Delvna, if you wanted to pop your camera on. As I'd mentioned in our introductions, Delvna was also class of 2020, photography with videography out of the Belfast campus, and she has quite a story to tell. Are you with us, Delvna? I'm just going to have
Yes.
a look at the gallery. Oh, there we go. Hiya.
Sorry if he interrupts me in the background here, just bear with me.
I can see a wee dog, Buck, the greyhound.
We whip it, yeah.
Oh, lovely. Well, they look a bit sleepy, so hopefully they won't interrupt you. So, Delvna, if you just wanted to fill everyone in a little bit on your own journey and where you are at the moment.
So as Kathy said, I graduated in 2020, and as the other girls have said, it was a terrible year for graduation and everything. Like, your classes were completely online. It just felt like you were sort of isolated. I know everyone was in the same boat, but you couldn't shake that feeling of like isolation, because we were all isolating. But it was just completely, it sort of felt like, as much as lecturers were trying to help, there was sort of like a lack of, I think, just the general morale was sort of low. But it was just sort of trying to keep pushing on. Like, as we were at home, there's a real lack of facilities. With me doing photography, I was used to having like the photography studio within the university. And obviously at home, I don't have a photography studio. So it was a lot of like makeshift, turning bed sheets into backdrops, that sort of thing, trying to do anything to make things work. So it was a lot of like overcoming obstacles and stuff like that. So you did sort of have to think a bit differently, like open your mind up a bit, like anything that you thought couldn't happen did happen, essentially. So it was like a lot of like overcoming difficulties and stuff like that. And there was that like not being able to see people and things like that. It was difficult. And then the graduation situation, or lack of at that point, it sort of, I don't want to sound like I'm going for a negative note, but it just sort of felt like it just ended, if you know what I mean. Like, there was no like celebration or anything like that. I think it was maybe a year later we got to Jordanstown, where it wasn't an actual graduation at that point either. It was just the pictures. So that was at least something. You put on a cap and a gown and you felt something. But it was difficult. Even like after we graduated, that was just sort of the end of it. After that, like, we were still leaving university in a world where it wasn't fully functional. It was still like, I graduated from my living room and I still wasn't able to leave my living room, so there was no jobs available. It was difficult in that sense as well. So classes of 2022 have it much better in that sense, where you're stepping out into a world that is 95% functional. But aside from that, like, even now, as the other girls were saying, like, I still don't have myself together. Like, I'm still like, I'm going through a complete rebrand in my photography, because I've moved to a smaller town and I'm just sort of like trying to change my style up a bit and things like that. So I'm trying to get a new name for myself, which is just adding extra stress to my journey. But I just feel like in the end, in the long run, it would be worth it. Just a bit of a rebrand, sort of trying it in a new light. But yeah, I did have to have a bit of a laugh to myself, because I heard Emma saying that she did a month in Lidl. And I actually did that too, a whole 1 month. It was not for me either. But it is definitely, like, in your 20s. I'm 26 now and I feel old saying that. But I still don't have my life together, and I don't think we should lean into this pressure in our 20s of having everything together, because likelihood is you won't, but it's worth putting every bit in when you can and just keeping trying.
And setting up your own business then, that's something that weren't you kind of freelance through your degree anyway, but this is something else, isn't it, Delvna?
During my degree, the degree helped me sort of like find what style of photography suited me. Because having the facilities in the university, it was great. It was great, and sorry, I lost my train of thought there. But yeah, university, it was great helping hand in sense of like discovering who I was as a photographer. But since not having like the studio and stuff, even still now, I'm sort of trying to find where I can fit outside of that in like the real world. So I'm trying to just rebrand a different side of photography, that sort of thing.
And obviously, you know, the network that you would have had and your connections, are they all in a different town and in a different location now to where you're trying to set up your business?
Yes. So everyone that I knew, everyone that was on the same boat as me, we were all in Belfast. So that's where I was studying. I was in the Belfast campus. So everyone that I was with was there. I'm now in a small town on the Antrim coast where the population is probably a quarter of what it is in Belfast. And it is quite difficult to get going again. So I won't lie, like in that sense, like being freelance, being self-employed in a small town, it can be difficult. I don't drive as well, which just adds the difficulties. So I rely heavily on public transport. So if you're carrying about like photography equipment and things like that, it's not the easiest. So I do plan to drive at some point very soon. But being self-employed, it is quite difficult. So I am working retail on the side as well to sort of balance things out and try to pay the bills. Not yet. I am actually meeting with a careers advisor on Sunday, so I'm sort of trying to push myself a wee bit more in terms of my self-employment. So she's able to tell me things about different like financial aids and things like that. But I hadn't actually heard of the Causeway Enterprise Agency before, so it's worth looking into as well.
And there was someone had asked about your rebrand. I'm just going to see what they said about your rebrand. How's your rebrand working for you?
It's still sort of in the works. A lot of it is more behind the scenes at the minute than it is on like social media and websites and stuff like that. So it's more having notebooks full of ideas and notebooks full of like graphic design sort of ideas. That I'm not a graphic designer, but I'm sort of like drawing things out to sort of plan up logos and things like that. So whenever I was at university, I was doing a lot of like fine art. Now that I'm out of university, I'm trying to focus more on portraits and couples and things like that, maybe engagement shoots and stuff. So I'm just I'm going to keep the fine art side of things, but also try to put the two together, essentially.
It's thinking where the money in the business is as well.
Mm-hmm. That's it, yeah. I did have a bit of luck with obviously we didn't have a proper end of year exhibition that year. We did have one in the Belfast Exposed Gallery, which was quite great. It was great seeing our stuff in a gallery. So I was lucky enough that the Arts Council bought one of my pieces, which was a great confidence boost at that point, because I was just sort of feeling so down in the dumps at that point in time. So it was a great confidence boost at that point.
And again, it's about trying to, I was going to say, it was going to be one of my questions. How did you not, manage not to just give up,
There were so many points where like I felt like I was like on the verge of doing so. There was a few times where you might remember her, Kathy Haley, one of my tutors in photography. There was many nights me and Haley were on the phone at like 8, 9 p.m. and she was like, "You can do this, you've got this." I'm like, do I really? So there was a lot of like feeling that isolation, loneliness, having to reach out for assistance, for help, and even like even at that people reaching out like that, it did help, but it's just so hard to break out of that mindset where you're alone, you can't do this. But at the end of the day, you just sort of have to push through and you will get there in the end.
And you're working part-time obviously in retail still while that goes on, so needs must,
Yeah, exactly. It's not my dream job, but you got to do what you can do.
Yeah, it's about sucking it up when you have to, I guess. I do remember working a 7-day week for a number of years myself back when I was trying to work out what I wanted to do. And I mean, you can see that obviously, you know, guys, each of our amazing 4 grads here are in a much, much better place than they were, but they'll all kind of admit that there are other things they want to do and they're all still a work in progress. I think nearly all of you have mentioned about that pressure that you all feel upon graduation, that you have to have it sorted out. And I certainly would have a number of people who are about to graduate emailing me at the moment saying, everyone's got a job, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like, everyone doesn't have a job. This whole comparing yourself to other people, we all do it and it's natural, but it's quite unhelpful at times, isn't it? I was wondering then if anyone had any last questions or comments for our amazing panel. We are actually absolutely bang on time. We're 12:43, so we're going to be finishing in the next few minutes. And I will hang on afterwards if people wanted to speak with me in private. I'm going to put a lovely LinkedIn post out. There's Donna, my colleague Donna.
Kathy, I have a little question there for Delvna. Delvna, because you're sort of located in the Northampton coast, this is just a pointer if you want to reach out to ourselves. I'm based typically in the Korean campus, as Kathy mentioned earlier. You know, I could maybe get you in touch with the likes of the Causeway Enterprise Agency or local photographers you may want to sort of align yourself to as well, if that would help.
Absolutely, yeah, anything.
Definitely. Please feel free. I'll put my email address in the chat box there, because as Kathy rightly said from the outset, we're really here to help everybody on the call here today. All right.
Really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
We have Brendan has his hand up. Brendan, did you want to ask or comment on anything?
Yeah, just a message for a question for Cara about the applied psychology masters. Postgrad isn't something that I'm massively considering at the minute, but maybe further down the line I would give it some thought. So how did you find the master's program and what did you sort of take away from it?
Yeah, no, as I said, I absolutely loved the master's program. It was like a no-brainer for me that I really wanted to go in and do that. Like even the team are just amazing. I think you probably would recognize some of the team, Brendan. They were maybe your lecturers throughout the undergrad, like Colin Gorman, Donal McAteer. But so with the applied masters, there's 2 routes you can go down. So there's there's a placement route. So you would be training as a psychological wellbeing practitioner, which is the route I went down. But you don't have to go down that route. And there's also like a route without the placement. So it just depends whether you want to go down the placement route or not. I think with the placement route, there's maybe about 15 to 20 spaces on that. So there's much more on the non-placement, but no, obviously I absolutely loved it. But that was all online, you see, as well. That was during COVID, which wasn't ideal. But I would really, really, really recommend it. One of my main points is because the team are just so great. And as I said, one of the lecturers from the masters is now my boss, but he doesn't feel like a boss. He's great. So yeah, very, very supportive team. Like, I think my supervisor probably seen me cry, happy, laugh, like everything. So yeah, if you go for it, you'll be very, very supported. So yeah, thanks.
Thanks, that sounds good. I did a clinical and counselling psychology module, and Colin was taught a few lectures on that. I found it really interesting and took away a
He's
lot
a good
from
man.
it.
He's a great man, very intelligent man. So yeah, if you're in touch with him, he'll point you in the right direction. So yeah, thanks for asking, Brendan.
We have a question from Beatrice. Oh, no, just a comment. Say a big thanks to everyone graduating next week, feeling the pressure. Yeah, I remember actually, I know it was a very, very, very long time ago, but I remember in graduating for about 5 or 6 years, feeling completely and utterly lost and not being able to settle on something and feeling that everyone else had got stuff sorted except me. And I remember actually talking about it randomly, but with a hairdresser, getting my hair done. And the hairdresser going, wise up. basically. And it was the first time that it really did sink in that, you know, people aren't sorted. So you don't have to compare yourself to others. So this has been an absolutely, you know, a really, really interesting, helpful, supportive session. We've had 4 grads from different campuses and different disciplines, but you know, the common themes and the tips coming out there are things like, you know, don't feel under pressure that you have to have everything sorted and compare yourself to others. Do look at what's available when it seems like a lot of avenues are closed to you. Also, Amy and Delvna have talked a little bit about their networks and, you know, how important networks were, and LinkedIn in particular. I mean, Emma mentioned LinkedIn as an employer, you know, for the hotels, but also each of you guys, you know, reaching out to people on LinkedIn for mentorship or advice, and making sure you tie in with myself and Donna because we post things out. Yeah, using your works, even your hairdresser. Because my hairdresser just put me right, and actually I remember, yeah. And then we also have things like, you know, it's about that, you know, not giving up when things seem really, really difficult. And when things seem like the end of the world, you do manage to push past through it. So unless we have any final questions, I am very happy to let our wonderful grads go. I will absolutely be popping this on LinkedIn almost straight away after this, stickability. I'm personally very, very grateful to all 4 of you as our, you know, the Employability and Careers Department. I know that your time is very precious, and I do believe that everything that you've said today will be of enormous help to our class of 2022. So thank you very much indeed, guys. Oh, there's Cara's. Yep, that's the handle for Instagram. Daily inspiration, mental health discussion. So at a little page of positivity, if anyone wanted to follow that on Instagram. Good luck in graduation. Enjoy it.